turn our Bibles to Matthew chapter 10. And we're going to jump in back talking about the blessing once again. And I am so thankful for the blessing of God. I'm so thankful that it's not just a nice little, I don't know. There's an emotion word that's attached to the blessing, and I've been trying to figure out what that would be, where the world would take the word blessed and reduce it. Or, you're a blessing. It's kind of an emotional thing that would be attached to the same word, right? It's not the same blessing that we're talking about. It's kind of an emotional way of taking that word and being like, oh, and you can have the feeling of, oh, when God blesses you, but the blessing gives you rights. It gives you authority. It gives you the power to overtake a curse. That sounds so much different than like, oh, the blessing, you're such a blessing. Now, if I really used it in that way and I told you you were a blessing, that would mean a bigger compliment than just that general, like, you make me feel good. Wouldn't it? So there's something that it'd have a stronger thing that would literally be like, wow. You're such a blessing to me. You are such an authority figure. You're such an imparter. You are such a person who can take authority over things, or say you don't permit something or you do permit something. You cause things to take place. I mean, I could just go down the line just with saying you're a blessing. But we've reduced that word down, not biblically, but we reduce it down to an emotion of like, oh, you're so sweet. Right? And so then the problem is we've been trained in the, oh, you are so sweet, and the covenant part of that word, in the word, right, that he calls us blessed, highly favored, is all about salvation. It's all about the power that he's instituted to bring us up out of darkness into his glorious light. It's all about the authority. It's all about the covenant. I mean, it just goes into this whole big thing. But the problem is, if we say, let's pray the blessing, and we don't clarify that part, then we're like, how do you put that into words? That's not just an emotion, because American trained brains, I don't know how it is all across the world with this word, but we have the brain that's trained that, like, we're just calling something beautiful. So literally by calling the blessing of God on the Capitol, stuff's going to happen down there. Stuff's going to change up. There's going to be some people confronted. There are some things that are, be sure your sins will find you out, because when the blessing comes, it comes as a light, and any darkness then gets exposed. But it doesn't fit with how we've interpreted, like, to the Capitol, just be such a blessing. See what I mean? See how it's different? So when we go to use this word to, like, if I was to say, let's go ahead and call the blessing, because the exact words that the Lord told us as an assignment of this church is we are to call the blessing. So you have to answer the call of the blessing in order to call the blessing. Because then if you don't answer that call, you actually don't know what the blessing is. So if we don't clarify that, then we're stuck in the emotion of it. And it doesn't actually feel that powerful. It just feels like something sweet that we're just asking. I just ask the Lord to bless that. See, that's a low-level way of using that word. It's just like, I just ask him to be sweet over it and just make everybody feel good. Right? It's the same thing in our mind. No, if I ask God to bless something, I'm actually looking to drive something out. Because if he didn't have to drive something out, it would already be blessed. So I'm recognizing it's cursed, and so now I got to call the blessing. You see it? So even in salvation or leading people to Christ, my job is to spread good news, and the good news is the blessing, that you can come into a standing with God, that you are blessed and highly favored, and walk in this same authority that I'm walking in now and more. Right? So then you are presenting the gospel to bring them into the blessing. But if they don't see the blessing part, it's more of that thing of like, oh, good, now you don't go to hell. I feel so relieved my cousin's not going to hell now. I let her. No, it's like, oh, you just signed up for a military position. This is a whole different thing. right? But because it's been reduced or because it's been messed with in our mind, there's a lot of words that are like that we form word pictures around. And so then if I say, let's call the blessing this morning on the high school in Cambridge, we just pick that or whatever. And then I say, I'm not going to pray, you're going to pray. If you all have the picture in your head that we're calling the blessing, well, how can I get good stuff in there? You know, how can I make everyone get along? It'll be a lower level of that. But when you have the knowledge that actually, if we have to call the blessing, that means something's cursed. Something's being subtracted from. And whatever we're going to pull down from the kingdom of heaven is actually going to add to that situation and drive out the lack. Lack of integrity, right? Lack of finances, lack of whatever. When there's lack there, that's the purpose of calling the blessing. And then we're able to say, blessed are you. Blessed, it's not blessed. As I've talked about this before, how we've messed that up. You say blessed anywhere else in the Bible till you get to the Beatitudes. And it's like, blessed are the poor. And, stop. Why did we change the word? We don't use the ed at the end of every other word like that, or we have to edit at the end. But what that says, that our hearing ear hears that, the voice tone about it or whatever, is like, oh, you're so intensely holy. No, it actually means blessed are the poor in spirit. That means they are going to be added to. Because they position their self in the knowledge that they are poor in spirit, and they're coming before him with a certain attitude, they can't help but the blessing fall on them and drive out any curse. We miss that whole concept. So then what happens is if we say the word blessed that way, blessed, then it already gives this achievement thing where it's like, I don't know if I'm like that. I better get like that, or I'm not going to be blessed or blessed. It gives that like we have to earn this kind of feeling to it, because that's that syrupy religious holy thingy that's all mixed up. And so when we say it correctly, blessed, which means empowered to prosper, to have success down the road, and we know we carry the blessing because he's blessed us. Now I have something to give that actually drives out devils. That actually drives out darkness. That actually is a form of deliverance. That actually causes us to have rights, to be in right standing with him. Then that word gets really powerful. So then if I say to you, you are a blessing, it isn't, Josh, you're a blessing to this church. It isn't like, oh, Josh, just feels so good that you're here. You're a blessing. Right? No, that's not the meaning. If I say he's a blessing to the church, that means there's an area of this church he is affecting by the power of God. What a blessing. I can tell you right now in praise and worship, he's a blessing. Because there's something happening with worshipers. I mean, you know when you come into service, if there's no worshipers in the house and everybody's just kind of singing, it's a dead air space. There's really not an effect happening. But when a worshiper comes in and they worship in spirit of truth, it causes the blessing to begin to move, and it'll affect the person next to you. It'll affect the person on air. It will affect the situation because it brings in the blessing. So now if I said to Josh, what a blessing you are during worship. It isn't like, you're being so nice to me, Josh. I just wanted to notice you, encourage you. No, that's not what it means. Right? So the thing is, voice tone causes pictures. You're such a blessing, Josh. Versus if I say, Josh, you're a blessing to this place. See how I said two different things? So, but if you don't know how to hear the inflection change, then the meaning becomes all the same. And we don't see the power in it. So he specifically told this church to call the blessing. He said, call the fear of the Lord onto this land, into this region we're responsible for, and into our households, and then call the blessing. The blessing will not rest where the fear of the Lord is not. So we have to keep that in mind. That's why it's important we are in the fear of the Lord first. There's an honor, an awe, a respect of who God is. And then we can recognize his blessing on us. His benefits that are part of the blessing become ours. And then we're able to see the power in it. That's why he lined it up that way, because literally the next thing he asked us to do was to pray that the hand of the Lord would move in situations. Well, that can come as far as, just a movement to all the way over here to judgment. There's certain things we just don't, pray like just throw it out there. And so the power of God move is his hand, right? The strength of who he is and his dividing out of things is his arm. And we're to call that. But if we do it backwards and we're not trained on the blessing and we're not walking in the fear of the Lord, we're dangerous. Now we're speaking stuff out that's like, you better be sure God told you to say that. Because that's kind of a big deal, So in that, even going, this is Matthew chapter 9, verse 11. It says a little bit different in the King James. I think it uses the word blessing, but this is in the Amplified. And to whatever town or village you go, inquire who in it is deserving and stay there at his house until you leave that vicinity. And you go into the house, give your greetings, or some translations would say the blessing, and wish it well. Well, that's a poor translation even for the Amplified, who's supposed to break it down, because God does not wish anything, because that has to do with luck. Wishing and luck go together. And so, but they're trying to put it in words that would say you're releasing the blessing. You're supposed to release the blessing in the house. But then here's what it says. Then if indeed the house is deserving, let come upon it your peace, that is freedom from all the distresses that are experienced as the result of sin. But if it's not deserving, let your peace return to you. So you're releasing the peace, which is the part of the blessing, because nothing's lacking, nothing's broken, nothing is left wanting, which is the word shalom. So you release your peace, you're releasing the blessing. If it returns to you, if it's like, this ain't going to settle here, there's other scriptures that say, just wipe your feet off and leave that place. Because now there's a conflict. So it's interesting in impartation of the blessing can be as simple as that. It can be that, I'm speaking to you, and suddenly the Lord gives me a word of wisdom, and I just say it to you, and the blessing in the word of wisdom drives out anything that you were caught. Your cingulate in your brain was caught thinking something that it's like, I'm stuck on this, and it's not God. And suddenly you come over into wisdom, and you're like, that's a blessing to you. See? And something got imparted that wasn't there before. A part of the knowledge of the kingdom came over to you, and it wasn't there before. So that was an adding of the blessing. So the gifts of the Spirit operate through the blessing. Intense, huh? Whew. So now there's the thought of imparting the blessing. Like, for instance, I've had people will say, will you pray over me for evangelism? I really want to come up in evangelism. Well, why are they asking me? Because I'm operating in something that they know I can impart something into them. The Lord gives me the freedom to do that. I will lay hands on them because there's a part of the blessing I'm already walking in that I want to come over onto them. The whole thing ain't passing over, but I'm going to give them a part. And then they culture that. Right? And it begins to grow. And they begin to walk in the blessing how God wants them to. So this is where the laying on of hands is so important when it comes to the blessing, even for covenant partners. So if you become a covenant partner and we don't just go, hey, thanks for joining our team, and that's it. It's like you can do that at a gym or somewhere else. We're not doing that here. We're doing it in a way where we come together, and then the covenant partners who have already been imparted into gather around the people who are coming up for an impartation. It's that intense. It isn't like, oh, let's just bless them. I'm so happy you're going to join our team and be here as part of Word of Life and, all syrupy or whatever. It's like, no, you just agreed to step into something. And you better have the blessing of God. And those who are already walking into it, because of the vision that's here, it's going to come over onto you. That's pretty intense, huh? So it's actually like an ordination is the same way. When you're ordained under a certain ministry or something like that, I mean, that impartation comes on you. When Jim Caseman laid hands on me, I felt the impartation. It was like, whew. And, and so whatever vein that you're stepping into also will have that same flavor. It doesn't change your personality, but your gifts are connected now into the impartation of what's happening here. And so those gifts light up in order to be a support to what's happening here. And years ago I thought, I'm an evangelist and that's it. How did I know that? Well, somebody handed me one of those tests that you take. Like if you score a 5, you're probably an evangelist or whatever. I don't like those. I'm sorry, but I don't like those. I just don't. I think it's okay to just kind of get a general or whatever. But people who take tests many times, they're stuck. Well, that's what it said on paper. That's who I am. Same way you see something from a doctor, then you're stuck there or whatever. And so I thought, that's it. That's the thing I got. When really the stronger gift I have is apostleship. And I do that through teaching by prophetic words and evangelism. That's the lineup. And so I believe that Brother Caseman operates the same way. Right? He's an apostle to many ministries all over the world, and yet he's out there riding a camel, evangelizing, and then teaching and going and establishing in many schools and things like that, in jails and all over the place. Russia, all over the place, right? And so my heart lines up very much like that. I didn't even know that, though. It isn't because he imparted onto me that I became more shifted over unto him, but the gifts that were in me already lit up. I was not aware of that. And I came under a flow that looks like that. So it was like a good combination. And that flow carries the blessing. If you're in a church and you just joined a membership and whatever's flowing down from the leadership, maybe they lay hands on you, maybe they don't, maybe you sign a piece of paper, you get a certificate. Every place is different or whatever. It's like you joined a gym many times. You're like, well, I guess I'm in this church now. We decided to marry and bury here. Okay, but you missed the whole blessing. But you will come under what's operating in that church because there's a headship there and a covering there. And if it's off, it comes on you. And people will submit themselves to that thing over and over, even though it's destroying them. It's actually subtracting from them, and they don't know it. And then we'll call that holiness, because we're suffering for Christ. And it's the suffering. If I'm going to suffer for Christ, it should not be in the church, ever. No, it's when I go out there and I get persecuted. But who am I to think that I'm greater than my master? In fact, persecution is a mark or a sign that you're walking in the blessing. Unless you're just out there being stupid. Then you can draw kind of, people to you. But I'm talking about you're doing what God wants you to do, and the blessing shows up on that behalf. Well, now there might be some persecution that follows. You can do the exact right thing and have a really good result, and somebody will talk smack. That should be outside the church, always. And in fact, to me, I get lit when some of that stuff happens, not lit in anger. I get lit with excitement because I'm like, oh, I am right where I'm supposed to be. I'm doing right what I'm supposed to be doing. This is a beautiful thing. Beautiful. So just talking the blessing talk, right? And so I want to be able to have us understand that even when you bless your children, You can bless them with all kinds of stuff. Peace, joy, anything that's in the kingdom, healing, all of that kind of stuff. Or you can say those traditional prayers that, bless me, Father. Well, we don't really know what it means, because as soon as you say that, you step outside of the understanding of the word blessing, because now it goes in the area of the brain where there's a training. And in that training, nobody really knows what it means. Am I not right? Yeah. How do you bless your food? Are you still reciting the little kid prayer? There's sometimes I'll just sit down and I'll look at the food and I'm like, thank you, God, I received this food. I don't really feel to call anything over, but there's some places I've ate that I'm like, I call the blessing. This is questionable material. I just saw some things in the back when they were putting, like one time we were at Arby's. I'm just going to say, right? I'm not saying which Arby's, but I am saying Arby's. And someone had cut their finger, and they had this big wrapped, and you could see the blood drawn. That was a person that was putting together my sandwich. I'm like, I'm going to call the blessing on this one. So I'm just saying, so there's something about that, but we become religious. I'll bow your head, And it's good to teach your kids a start out prayer, because they don't understand the blessing, and you're getting them in the habit of calling the blessing over their food. Thank you, God, that this food is blessed, and I receive it to my body through the word that sanctifies it. You're on the mission field, you got to do that a lot. Well, that's our belief system anyway, when really there's more chemicals and everything in our food that'll kill you probably quicker than some parasite over in Africa. Just saying. Just because it comes in a pretty package doesn't mean it's not there to enhance death. So the blessing is that part of impartation, but you have to have received it in order to give it. Can't take somebody where you haven't gone, can't give them what you don't have. So we go and we get from God in the sense of the blessing. It isn't where you're like, I performed well, now you need to bless me. That's also a misunderstanding. So you got you're such a blessing, which is that syrupy emotional use of the word, or God's going to give me stuff because I did good. That's not how it works. That's why prosperity is so misunderstood. Because it becomes this earning. It's a poverty mind that thinks you're going to earn the blessing from God. Because the blessing comes through the favor of God, which is his grace. And the heart and the attitude, yes, is under the grace. And you do what you do, but you call the blessing. God, I need your blessing. I don't need stuff. But I know that if I need stuff, it'll come because the blessing's here. I'm not calling stuff, I'm calling the blessing. So if we need a new house for Mission 61, I've been calling the blessing. I can't produce a new house for Mission 61. I can't do it. But the blessing can, right? And so I call the blessing. That means whatever it is you want to do, Lord God, the blessing will take care of this to meet the needs of people who are not able to house themselves. They're in a crisis right now. So we know that that's the problem. I just call the blessing. And then I just know whatever's needed will follow. But I call a chair, I call a couch, I just know the blessing will take care of it. But I call the blessing because it will drive out any curse, any lack. Do I presently have lack? Have you ever looked at it like that? I don't have lack. We have different houses or whatever. I'm calling on behalf of people who have lack overall. I got some things that still the blessing needs to take care of, but I'm talking about overall, I'm fine. I have a house, I eat food, that type of stuff. But if I'm gonna call the blessing, and I'm calling on behalf of the lack, I'm looking for the blessing to drive out the poverty on their behalf. I'm not looking for a house. Whatever's needed to do that, though, will manifest. Can you see it? So So he gave us the command to call the blessing. We're asking for the grace of God, his blessing, his favor to come. I cannot earn that. You cannot earn that. And it's religious of us to think, once I start doing good, God'll bless me. No. His biggest blessing he brought was salvation on the cross, and we're all sinners. We are all sinners. While we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. He brought the blessing. Now we're just in the receiving part of it. We're not in the earning part of it. He took care of that. He already paid that debt. So I come underneath that debt release, under the blessing. But when you walk in the blessing, there's a power to it. There's an anointing to it that pulls almost like a whirlwind of how his kingdom works. The word kingdom, the sphere of his rule, as it's moving. It's not sitting still. He never sleeps nor slumbers. It's moving. It will attract the things that are needed to that movement. But what we do is we go outside the blessing and then call for things. And then we're mad at God if he doesn't give us those things. And never the people have things. And I don't know why I don't have things. And then we just beat ourselves up how we're not loved. And I mean, it just causes all kinds of problems. When we just see that salvation bought us the blessing. I will call on the blessing. Whatever you see fit here, Lord God, you're going to take care of the needs. I just want to walk in your blessing. I want to be a blessing. But I got to walk in the blessing in order to be a blessing. I want to be blessed in all things at all times. Give so that I might give. I'm blessed and highly favored that I might give. That's when you know the blessing's there, because you've received it and now you can freely give it. But our brains will take it down. The American brain will definitely take it down to items. We must earn items, like you're earning a paycheck or something like that. I put this much time in. I mean, I don't know why God's not getting another house for 61. It's getting frustrating. And then we'll start talking demon talk. There must be some demon that's blocking. Then, we're searching and we start chasing things rather than, I don't care if there's a demon blocking or there's poverty, whatever it is, I'm calling the blessing. And another way, it's like saying, I'm telling my dad. And to the world, my dad is bigger than your dad. So you come in a situation like when we were in Nicaragua, Felicia and I, and you're walking down the streets. You're very, very aware of the curse. Poverty everywhere, garbage laying everywhere, little kids begging you for food, and you're standing there in the blessing. See, Americans don't, even the poorest of Americans don't understand what the blessing really is, because we're surrounded with things that show us, see, we're good. Why are we good? Because this United States was founded on the gospel. It has nothing to do with us. And so the favor is here. And some of these places were without Christ, and you can definitely see that it shows. There's everything going on that you can think of. And so the missionary part is like, I'm here with the blessing. I don't want to just give them things. I want to do the thing where Jesus said, come and drink of me. He told the woman at the well, and you will thirst no more. That's the blessing. That's the blessing. So once again, if I say to Josh, you're such a blessing to this church. Well, he's adding to the church. But the lowest level and misunderstood way of using that word is kind of like, Josh is so nice. Such a blessing. Well, his niceness is a blessing, but the authority of the blessing, Jesus didn't just die for that. That's the lowest level of operation. The higher level of operation was when the blessing shows up. Poverty screams. Poverty of your soul, poverty financially, poverty in your body. It screams because the blessing is here. And so he uses his vessels to carry the blessing. We call for the blessing. Change me, O God, that I might house the blessing at a greater level. So if you ask for things to be blessed, you might not be able to handle those things. Kind of like when we give our kids too much and they got toys laying all over and they play with it one time and, they got things. But the blessing for them to operate at a higher level is something totally different. And then discernment comes with the blessing. You walk into a place and you just have that like, there is lack here. I don't care if it looks ritzy on the outside. There's something that there is lack. There is a blindness here. There is darkness here. And you're aware of it because it's completely opposite of what you're carrying. So to be blessed financially doesn't mean we're just to be rich, right? And I can't say the prosperity message did that. I think people did that. Because once again, people say, well, so-and-so said this. Then I'll go and listen to all the sermons. Not what he said. Not what he said. But it's how we hear. It's how we hear, and those words go in, and then we put it in a certain visual box that it's like, that's what they said. No, that's not what they said. The blessing comes from God, and you got to get over into his kingdom to even walk in it. You can be an unsaved person and just be so rich, have everything, and be poor in the blessing. So it's not things that do it. Things just attract to the blessing, though. They just can't help but show up. So there's a difference. But we're to call the blessing, and that's what we're going to do here right now. Let's stand. So, is there lack in your children? And you see it, and it's just hanging out, and you're like, oh, that's poverty in their soul. They're thinking less of themselves. Like I told a lady a couple weeks ago, I think it was at Unshackled when I was preaching. They, talking about what happens if your child says to you, child can be 25 years old, but they say to you, hey, I'm going out tonight, going with my friends to the bar. And everything as a mother, it just goes, whoa, inside of you. Why is that? Because you want to control them, because you want to, no. It's that God created them for more than that. You're aware that they're supposed to operate in the blessing. And this is just participating in something that subtracts from you. And you will grieve. Your stomach will just, no, that's not, I birthed you. That is not what you were born for. And it'll frustrate you, and you get mad, and you get all those emotions because you're fighting for the right for the blessing to fall on them at a higher level so that they can turn and be a blessing to other people. And when they're not operating in it, drives you batty, doesn't it? Yeah, so it could be that, it could be many other things, but we're going to start out by praying for our family. And so I'm going to pray, but you begin to think of your children. You begin to think of your household. Go on to your husband, your wife, whatever it is, and begin to just call the blessing. Difference is asking for the blessing is not quite the same as calling. There's a little bit more of a pull, like ask and then I wait and see if I get it. No, he told us to call for it. So just the same way wisdom stood in the streets and called. Proverbs talks about that. She calls to us. We're calling the blessing. So, Father, we come before you in the mighty name of Jesus, and we thank you, Lord God, for the blessing. We wouldn't have the operation of salvation in us without it. We're so thankful. And you said that when we become born again and we have you dwell, your presence, your kingdom starts ruling inside of us, that salvation would come to us and our household. In all things, in all ways, at all times, we call the blessing. We call the blessing to rest on our sons and daughters, that they might come up and rule in the kingdom, that they might come up and be humble before you, that they might come up and be such a blessing and be able to house the blessing that's being passed down. Hallelujah. We call the blessing. We call the blessing. We call the blessing in our thinking, in our marriages. We call the blessing. Overtake any curse that's there. Overtake it. Let light come now and shine in the darkness, and we'll see clearer. We're going to see clearer. We're going to see clearer because we have the blessing. We have the blessing. We're blessed and highly favored. Oh, hallelujah, rasasa. I like even Old Testament, Lord, you said we're blessed in the city and in the country and our going in and our coming out. We're just so blessed because of the blessing. Anything we set our hand to do will prosper because of your blessing. We call for that. Hallelujah. We know that as we call the blessing onto our life, it can get uncomfortable because any curse that's on us right now, subtracting for us, will be made aware of, and then it has to go. Change of thoughts, change of thinking, change of positioning, change in the name of Jesus. So we call the blessing on our family members. We call the blessing. Let salvation power go out and do the work that it does by the Spirit of the living God. By the finger of God, drive out anything that is not the blessing. Thank you, Lord, for deliverance. We come under the umbrella of your blessing. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Hallelujah. Let's call the blessing for this church and TBO and any outreaches that we do. Any Bible studies that are going on, anything that's happening for the children, all the way through, we call the blessing. We call the blessing, Lord God. See, a call is not real quiet. It's not, a whisper. I'm calling, hey, over here at Word of Life, over here at TBO, over here at Unshackled, over here in the North, over here in Mission 61, over here at every Bible study, at every friend group, everything. Call the blessing. We're here. Therefore, we make straight the path for the Lord to show up, not through performance, by yielding to you. We yield to you. Your purpose, your plans, your will, and your ways come first. We yield to you. And that's what stretches the wineskin to be able to house more of the blessing. We yield. We yield. Any forms of addiction or addictive behavior, we call the blessing to it. We call the blessing to overtake that curse. I'm not blessing the thing. I'm causing that area to be blessed by calling on you, Lord God. That salvation power would come and deliverance would take place. We call the blessing. And the blessing is on the way, so we yield. We yield and receive. We yield and receive. We yield and receive. We take authority over and break off any just bonding that we have to the concepts of earning that came through religion, that came through false disciplines, that came through harsh words and shaming. The blessing will cause us to perform differently. It'll get on us and change us. And suddenly we'll be doing things different. We're not here to earn this. We're here to position ourselves and make straight the path for the Lord to show up with the blessing. We call the blessings financially, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. If you're suffering any area in your body, whether you're watching online or here in the sanctuary, we call the blessing to you. We call the blessing in such magnitude it drives out any form of cancer, any form of infection. Lord God, viruses and bacteria can't sit under the blessing, so we call for it. We're calling on the blessing of the living God. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We yield and receive. Yield and receive. Interesting. Some of us are caught, as the Lord just shared this with me. Some of us are caught in an in-between, crossing from last year's war into this year's beginning. What are we doing now? kind of feeling. Don't make that up on your own, what you're going to do next. Call the blessing. Call the blessing. And he'll take what happened last year and he'll expound on some of those things. And the war that goes on this year will be different because of the blessing. We call the blessing. We call the blessing. We cause our eyes to see differently on our destiny because of the blessing. The bravery, the boldness that will come up to share the gospel is because of the blessing. There's an assuredness in it, an impartation in it, in the name of Jesus. So if I had a prayer line right now and you recognize there's some area of poverty in your soul or in your checkbook because of your soul, and we'll say it that way, and there is an impartation where people are walking in that blessing and they're fully aware God did this in my checkbook. And now you have somebody who's hurting. Part of impartations, I have the blessing. Here's $50. That'll get you some meal and whatever you need right now. I have it. I'm carrying it in the physical. But you literally can pray on that person, the blessing that you're walking in. And all of a sudden you'll just see things will come to pass. I'm going to share one story before we go into praise and worship, but the team can come on up. This happens over and over for me, especially in Mission 61, but it doesn't matter. Whoever comes into my office, I've chosen to walk in the blessing and dare to believe that God is going to cause things to happen that wouldn't otherwise happen. So I had a person come in and they're just like, this isn't going to work out. They told me no on this. They said no, and the court told me no on this. They basically just said, I'm screwed. That's what they said, which means it's over. There's nothing I can do. I said, well, first of all, you need to pay a place to live. The first start of any problem solving is get to safety. Whether you have a place to live or not, get to safety, get into some counseling, get to something that settles it down like I'm safe. I still have all these problems, but I'm safe. So you get to safety first. That's what I told her. And then I said, but I believe God's going to take care of this, this, and this. Well, I don't know. I said, no. I want you to agree with me right now that the blessing will overtake that. She had 3 things that were major, and in 3 days, all 3 things were supernaturally taken care of, where she is still freaked out to this day, like, how did that happen? Because it wasn't something she asked me to do. I couldn't do anything either. But it was like she had favor, she had favor, she had favor. Yeah. And then her relationship came up in Christ because she saw how much she was loved. And then your talk starts saying this, if God can do that, what else can he do? That's what fires you up, right? Right? So that's the journey that she's now on. That happens over and over and over. And I have the joy, and you have the joy of just watching it happen. Oh, God's so good. Sometimes I just laugh when people leave the office because I'm like, he's so good. I don't know how you can do this, Lord, but this is going to be a good one. And it always turns out, and it's just so good. And they're not in a spot where they can say they earned it. In fact, a lot of times they're in a lot of trouble. They caused the trouble. Well, God's not going to bless that. No, he's going to bless them. He's not all about their jail time and all that kind of stuff. He's about their heart, and he's going to bless them. So we call the blessing. And so, anything comes up, say, oh, Lord, I call the blessing to that. I just call the power of the blessing in the mighty name of Jesus.